Hey everyone, my name is Jessica Ritchie, and I am here this month to talk to you a little bit about carbs. I know historically carbs have gotten a bad rap, especially in the 90s. If any of you ever were on the Atkins diet or a low carb diet, carbs were like public enemy number one. And I am here today to tell you that they are not. And it is goes along with the title of this little presentation. Carbs are not the enemy. And while we can sit here and talk about that all day, I'm so glad that Brandis asked me to share this with you. Nutrition is one of my passions. It's one of the things that I love to talk about most and focus on with my clients because there is so much power in it. So thank you, Brandis, and thank you to you all for kind of giving me this opportunity to come to you today and maybe start to clear the name a little bit of carbs. So I have a couple slides that I will share with you. But first, I just wanted to let you know, if you don't already know me, my name is Jessica Ritchie, and I am trained as a nurse. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in 2008, and I have been working in the ICU and the OR ever since. 2 years ago, when I had my daughter Audrey, I decided to kind of take a turn and take my passion for preventative health and wellness and turn it into a business. So I started nutrition and wellness coaching almost 2 years ago. And again, like I mentioned, nutrition is one of my favorite things to focus on and work on with my clients because honestly, it's 80% of your results. While fitness and the workouts are really great for boosting endorphins and getting that blood pumping and helping you feel motivated and energetic, the bulk of your results is going to come from what you're putting into your body. That's food, that's what you're drinking. And there's so much power at the end of your fork. So I am here today to just kind of, again, clear the carb name a little bit and just teach you some tips and tricks and some things that you can use and start implementing right away when you go to the grocery store, when you're looking at food labels. So one of the biggest things I love to do is to give people simple bits of information that they can take and use right away in their everyday lives because it is so powerful. And the only way that you are going to improve and get better is number one, if you know. We don't know what we don't know. So I'm here to maybe teach you some things you didn't know and hopefully empower you a little bit and give you some confidence in choosing some foods, maybe throughout the day today even. So carbs are not the enemy. And let me share my screen here. We'll switch over, bear with me. Hopefully you can see this. All right. All right, so carbs are not the enemy. How to keep it simple and see results. And this is another I'm kind of combining two things that I'm very passionate about into one. So, number one, nutrition and teaching people that carbs aren't the enemy. In fact, we absolutely need carbs. Carbs are where we get the energy to go throughout the day, to power us through our workouts, to power us through our busy school days. I know you guys are hopefully getting a nice break. I know this last year is crazy, and I cannot even imagine the work and the stress that has gone into your year. So just know we are so proud of all of you, and we value you as people, as part of our community. I don't know how you guys do it. So we are here to support you, and hopefully you can take this as a little bit of support as well. So carbs and how to keep it simple, because a lot of times what derails people is making it too complicated. And as humans, we overcomplicate everything. It's in our nature. It's what we do. So my job is to kind of help you keep it simple. And by doing that, you're more likely to stick to the plan. And if you're more likely to stick to it and be consistent, you're more likely to get those results that you're really after. So it works out really well in the long run. So that is my goal here today, is to teach you those two things, how to keep it simple, see results, and still eat carbs and some of those things that you might really love and still see those results. So, um, first of all, those of you who are science teachers, you probably already know this, but maybe for those of you who are not, or those of you who your nutrition classes from high school are long gone, I'm going to keep it again very simple. Carbs give us energy. Carbs help keep us full. So they're absolutely necessary. And when our body ingests carbs, they break down, again, simplifying, they break down into glucose and fiber, essentially. So glucose It is used by all different areas of the body, and a lot of times it gets a bad connotation. A lot of times when we think glucose, we think sugar. And again, in the 90s or even the early 2000s, no sugar, low sugar, those kind of diets were also very popular. And again, in the 90s, Atkins, the low carb, the no carb, things like that, they were really popular, and some still are to this day, and they do work well in the short term. And a lot of reason for that is because they aren't sustainable, because they are very restrictive. And a lot of times over the long haul, you get sluggish, you get tired because carbs give us energy. We need them. And there are certain tissues and organs in our body, our brain being number one, that literally live off of glucose. They need it to survive. And the brain and certain other tissues in the body, they can't make glucose. So they rely on a constant stream of glucose from elsewhere in the body, AKA what we're taking in, what we're bringing in, to survive. So it is absolutely imperative that we keep that supply going so that our brains can function at tip top shape. If you've ever experienced brain fog or midday confusion, if you've ever experienced that mid-afternoon slump, these are the things that we see on the outside that I help everyone kind of connect to, all those little things that are going on the inside. It's all connected. So if nothing else, if I can help you kind of learn that today, that would be really great. And what goes on the end of our forks and into our bodies is very much connected to what we're seeing on the outside. So whether we have a lot of energy or not, whether we're feeling tired and sluggish or not, whether we have enough oomph to get through our day and to get through our workout and then to get home and take care of our families. So it's all about that well-balanced life in general. It's not just about workouts and it's not just about nutrition. It's how all these pieces fit together. And that's one of my passion projects as well. So how carbs give us glucose, carbs give us fiber. So again, for those of you that may not really remember, our bodies don't really digest fiber. So these work more as kind of like the street sweepers of our digestive system. They kind of help filter things out, push things through. You can, if you want to kind of visualize where I'm going with this, but it's also a very necessary part of our nutrition because it helps do those things. You guys know when you get a clog in your sink or in your toilet, what the outcome is, and it's not pretty. Imagine that in your body. Imagine the systems of your body getting clogged and backed up. Does it function as well? Probably not. Does it feel great? Probably not. So fiber also plays a very important role. And we get glucose and fiber from carbs. So again, requiring a constant stream. Now, where you can kind of see the other side of it, as with anything else, in excess, it can, turn into a negative situation. So when we have extra glucose and things like that, what does our body do with it? Well, it either stores it. We have our liver that does a lot of that, and other areas of the body where glucose gets stored, even down in our itty bitty cells. So it either gets stored or our body turns it into something called triglycerides. And some of us have, the light bulbs are going on. They're like, yeah, I've heard of that. Mine are really high on my lab values when I go to the doctor. Usually that's the only time we've ever heard of triglycerides in relating to cholesterol and blood work and things like that. But these are kind of the little processes as to where that comes from and how those elevated levels get into the bloodstream. So it all comes from, again, simplifying this quite a bit, but I want to make it easy for you guys to understand. And for us to understand and utilize the information, we don't need to know all the ins and outs. We just need to know the useful bits and then implement that in our lives. So main takeaway from this is, as with anything else, excess is not always a great thing. And when we have excess carbs, we therefore have extra glucose, excess glucose. And when the body can't use all of it up, it either stores it or dumps it into the bloodstream as triglycerides. And a lot of times we can see our cholesterol levels go up and our triglyceride levels go up. And that's when we start hearing from the doctor, well, maybe you need to go on a cholesterol medication. Maybe you need this, maybe you need that. These are kind of where it all starts. So just to kind of give you a little idea on that. Now, that's a little bit of the backstory and how things are set up, how we set the stage. now I don't want to be doom and gloom. I want to give you guys some tactical tips. I want to empower you and give you the tools that you can take and start implementing right now, today, in your next meal to help combat that, to help make sure that you are getting the right amount of glucose and fiber and in the form of carbs. And hopefully you will not shun carbs. And hopefully you can eat carbs without feeling guilty, without feeling like you're doing something bad or wrong. So, again, I will preface this with what I tell all of my clients. So, everyone is different. All of us, we all know we're different people, but the insides are different as well. So, we all have different microbiomes, we all have different makeups and DNA, and we all respond differently to different foods. So, first and foremost, I ask you to be more self aware. So, whether that's as detailed as writing down a food journal, this can be super helpful. If you guys have never done this, it does sound tedious and it does feel that way a little bit in the beginning, but it can give you some really great information on how certain foods are affecting your body. Is a food working for you or not? For some people, broccoli is really great. For other people, it causes some really uncomfortable GI issues. So, even foods that can be healthy or that we know to be healthy may not really work well for some people as they do in others. It's all about being self aware, being in tune, listening to your body, paying attention to those little things that are going on. Like, are you feeling a little brain fog? Do you notice certain times when maybe you have a lot of white flour or starchy carbs or non-starchy carbs for lunchtime? Do you have a really big crash in that mid-afternoon where your energy just plummets? These are things to pay attention to. This is your body trying to give you clues and tell you, like, hey, maybe this isn't working so well. Maybe let's do this instead. So, don't I think as a society and as a people in general, we've gotten so used to living off of caffeine because we just think it's normal to be tired. It's normal to be sluggish and have no energy, when in fact, that's not the case at all. Our bodies are meant to thrive. And food, whole foods, natural foods can be such a great source of that. So, there's so much more. We can have a whole nother monthly topic on that, but pay attention to the cues that your body is giving you and use it as information, as to maybe we can make some different choices. And so these next couple slides, I hope, will help you do that. To maybe, if you are feeling like after you're eating you're just feeling really tired and sluggish, maybe you can look at some of these things and say, oh, there's an area that maybe I can improve a little bit, or there's a food that maybe I can make a different choice and maybe I can feel a little bit better. That's my goal for you today. So, on the topic of better choices, again, these first two slides. So we can break down carbs into two different categories. So we can break them down into FFCs, that stands for fiber filled carbs. These are like the good guys. These are the things that are going to give us the most energy, the most bang for our buck. These are the things that are going to keep us feeling full longer and that are better choices if our goal is weight loss first and foremost. So if you fall into this category where maybe you're wanting to lose some weight, or maybe you're needing more energy, you're just feeling tired all the time and you're wanting to change that up. I mean, who doesn't want that? These categories are something to pay attention to. And there's a lot of ways we can get this in. So vegetables and veggies is, I don't know if you guys were kind of raised in the mindset of, counting calories and things like that. Again, whole nother monthly topic, but for most people don't need to live by the numbers to be successful. Most people don't need to really count calories or weigh their food. Yes, you should have a good idea of what a portion size is. And a portion size of a carbohydrate is a cupped handful. So one cupped handful is one portion serving of a carbohydrate. So for the average person, 1 to 2 of those per meal is appropriate. So these types of foods would be your starchy vegetables, your squashes, your sweet potatoes, beans and legumes, any kind of beans, hummus, which is basically ground up chickpeas, lentils. Actually, this is one food that I've started incorporating into my own nutrition, something I'd never had before. Fruits. Who doesn't love fruit? So while we think of carbs normally as like white bread, white pasta, carbs are also in the form of all of these great nutritious nutrient dense whole foods that are great sources of carbohydrate and therefore energy for us. So fruits like apples, bananas, mangoes, strawberries, because the list goes on and on. You can Google that or whatever, or figure that out, or we can have a conversation about that later on. But lots of different fruits are a great source of carb and energy, and that kind of that hit of almost sugary sweetness, it's nature's candy, so to speak, but it's going to last a lot longer than maybe that energy drink that you're normally sucking down at 1 p.m. And that leaves you feeling sluggish and crashing how often later, right? So also whole grains. And here's the thing, people are like, well, I'm on a low carb diet, I can't eat breads, I can't eat pastas. That's not necessarily true. There are a lot of great grains out there that can give you a lot of bang for your buck, that don't have a lot of the more negative side effects that we think of as maybe the more processed things. So these are things like oats, whole grain breads. They even have whole grain pastas, veggie pastas. They've got chickpea pastas in the grocery stores now. Very accessible, very wallet friendly. And it doesn't take really any different cooking style than what you're normally used to. I know we've all heard of quinoa by now, probably. That's a really great source of grains, but also a little bit of protein as well. So those are kind of like the good guys. And then, not to bash on anything, but we also need to know the flip side of that. We need to know what carbs are more silly. We like to call them silly carbs. I don't want to say bad carbs, because I personally don't believe in a nutrition plan that is super, super restrictive and that deprives you of certain things that you just really love, certain foods that we love to indulge in from time to time. But that's the key. We need to indulge in them from time to time and not consistently every single day, because whatever you're doing consistently, that's what's going to give you your results. Okay. So if you're consistently going to McDonald's, and again, I don't want to bash on anything, but if you're consistently eating highly processed, high sugar, high fat foods and sodas and things like that every single day, what kind of result are you expecting to get? And that's just being perfectly honest. Again, I don't mean to make anyone or anyone's choices bad. I'm just here to offer you a glimpse at what it is and maybe how we can improve in one way or another. So these more silly carbs are not banned by any means. It's not like you can never have these ever again. It is just something to think of as more indulgent, something to indulge in on occasion. Um, these foods often have little or no fiber. They have a lot more sugar. And these are the foods that are going to cause you to feel like really high and maybe even jittery, like quickly, but then they're also going to cause you to crash almost just as quickly. And it's never a good feeling. And I have felt it before. I still feel it from time to time, that mid-afternoon slump, that after lunch, before the bell rings for you're out of school for the day and you are just struggling. So maybe you do turn to that extra cup of coffee or that energy drink or something like that. These are just areas to pay attention to. So what are these kind of more silly or occasional foods? Alcohol. That's a biggie. We all know it. And this again could be a whole nother topic, but I feel like this is an area that we as a culture have come to be so comfortable with, that it's just kind of everywhere. And it just goes along with a lot of different meals and a lot of different events and social situations. And it's just become everywhere. And so we don't really think of it as maybe all the time in relation to our nutrition, because it's not a food, it's something we're drinking, but it can very much affect your nutrition and how your body feels, not just in that day and that moment, but the following day. So just something to pay attention to. Again, all those good, yummy things we love and our taste buds are really kind of conditioned to at this point: baked goods, brownies, candies, chocolates, chips. I mean, my big thing is chips. So I get it. Like, it is very hard for me to not dive into a chip bag and just stay there for a little while. So I am not some unicorn. I am right there with you. I struggle with these things daily, but I just try and play the tape through. I try and remember how I'm probably going to feel after I eat that thing. And if it's not a really great feeling, I try and take a step back and just pause and ask myself, why am I reaching for this? Why am I wanting to eat this right now? Can I hold off for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? And oftentimes I think you'll find, I know I have, and it's been true for my clients, if you just break that time up a little bit from the initial craving to the action, and you take a step back and you take that pause, a lot of times we can start to rewire our brains and we can start to break that connection that a lot of times we feel, that emotional connection with our food, with a drink, things like that. And that is often where the root of our behaviors come. So if we can just take a pause sometimes and ask ourselves why we're reaching for a certain food, or why we're reaching for a drink, or why we're reaching for this or that, if we can just break that connection up a little bit, we can often give ourselves the opportunity to make a different choice, to make a better choice. So a lot of my work also revolves around some of that more mindset stuff. And for a lot of us, there is a very big mental and emotional connection to our foods and to that comfort feeling. So that's something I work with a lot with my clients too. So just to kind of give you a little insight into that, there is a method behind the madness. There are reasons why we do certain things we do, reasons why we choose certain things that we choose, especially in certain moments like stress. So I'm just here to kind of give you a little glimpse into that. Sugary beverages are another big one. And you all know, like, if something comes in a bottle from the store, most often it probably has some sugar in it, sometimes a lot of sugar. A lot of times we'll reach for those iced teas and we think, oh, I'm choosing a tea. Like, this is a really great choice. Not always. Some of them, yes, some of them are great, but make sure you're flipping that bottle over. Make sure you're paying attention to your nutrition labels, because unfortunately, a lot of times there are a lot of sugars hidden in there. Also, a lot of times there's some artificial sweeteners in there too. So while some companies might get away with a lower number on the nutrition label, you also have to keep an eye on the ingredients and checking for those artificial sweeteners that can be detrimental to our health as well. So again, just one more thing to kind of pay attention to as you're looking at your labels. And that brings me to my last slide. My 3 carb rules. And this is something, if you guys want to screenshot this, if you want to, screenshot your computer screen or your phone or whatever you're looking at, this is a really great thing to even memorize when you're going to the grocery store, when you're sitting down to the lunch in the cafeteria, something like that. These things will guide you into choosing a better carb. So we talked about the FFCs, the good carbs. These 3 little rules will help you choose that if it is something that has a label. So obviously a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables. Hopefully you're eating those like in their most natural state or as close as possible. You're not going to have a label for those. That's even better. So for foods that do have labels, following these 3 rules will really give you a great kind of guidance to which ones are better than others. And I think you'll be surprised if you start looking at some of the foods in the grocery store. I think you'll really be surprised in what you'll find. So my 3 carb rules, again, simple, simple, simple. We want to keep this simple, empower you to make better choices. That's what it's all about. So number 1, taking a look at the calories. It's usually the biggest number, the biggest wording, and print bold right on top. So a good carb has ideally 150 calories or less. If it's close, like 160-ish, I'll accept it. But 150 or less is ideal. And then the fiber, we go to the fiber. You guys remember me talking about fiber, why it's important. So we do want to make sure that the carbs that we're eating do contain some fiber. And we want at least 1 gram of fiber for every 10 grams of carbs. And it's kind of nice, right on the nutrition label, the carbs are usually right above the fiber. So, and it'll show you in grams. So for example, if you have a food with 20 grams of carbs, you would want to make sure that the fiber is at least 2 grams. Okay. And then the third rule, fiber versus sugar. Again, the nutrition label is kind of nice because the sugar usually comes right after the fiber. So ideally, you want to have more grams of fiber than you do of sugar on your label. If they're equal, that's totally okay. It would still be a good carb or an FFC. But ideally, you want a little bit more fiber than sugar. So again, screenshot this. Hopefully this is something you guys can start implementing right away, maybe at your next meal, or maybe if you're going to the grocery store, you can kind of take a look at some of the things in the aisles, some of the things that have labels on them, and maybe make a different choice, or maybe just have that knowledge and have that new little tool in your tool belt that you can use when choosing your foods or whatever you're making for your family, however you meal plan, things like that. So sorry, I'm just looking down at my notes. I want to make sure that I am cognizant of your time. So as far as slides, I'm going to stop sharing. That's all I have for you with that. But the one last thing that I want to kind of share with you is I talked a little bit about meal planning. Now, when you structure your meals, so obviously we talked about carbs and we don't necessarily want an excess because when we have an excess, our body stores it as, sugar, glucose, or it gets turned into triglycerides that are going around through our bloodstream. So, how do we make sure that we're getting enough carbs to boost our energy and help us through our day, but to not have an excess that's just getting stored and stored and stored in our body? So, typically for the day, we start in the morning. So, we really want to get a nice hit of carbs in the morning with our breakfast. That really gives us that power to boost us through to the next meal time. And then, if you think at lunchtime, we still have about half of our day to go through. Some of us might have kids and extracurricular activities. Some of us might do our workout later in the day. So you still want a little bit of carbs at lunchtime, not quite as much as you had at breakfast, but still enough to kind of help power you through the afternoon. And then by dinner time, unless you work night shift, for most of us, we're getting ready to wind down for the evening. We're getting ready to probably go to bed in several hours, depending on how much of a baby grandma you are. After dinner, we're starting to settle down. So we really don't need that big hit of energy that we get from carbs. So often now, I will preface this by if you have a medical condition or a certain illness that you really need strict guidance and things like that on your glucose and on your carbs, like diabetics. My diabetics, some of you are very sensitive to this. So this part might not be as relevant to you, but for the majority of us, for most of us, we really don't need that extra bit of carbs at dinner time. So my suggestion, I do this in my own life. I suggest it to my clients if they do not have any other, medical predispositions. Try doing dinner without carbs. So you're getting carbs at breakfast, you're getting carbs at lunch, but by dinner time, most of us don't really need that extra energy. And so what does our body do? It's not really working it off, all throughout the night like it is during the rest of our day. And there's a huge fly. I'm so sorry. So we don't really need that. So our body essentially is just kind of storing it and then using it the next day, which isn't always the most effective thing for our metabolism. And I can tell you from my personal experience, when I started eliminating carbs, oh my goodness, this fly. When I started eliminating carbs from my dinner, I felt so much lighter and cleaner in the mornings. I didn't feel bloated. I wasn't feeling so sluggish. So just as maybe a little science experiment for yourself, see what happens. Maybe try it 1, 2, 3 nights this week. See what happens if you replace maybe your typical carb source, maybe add more veggies to help you stay full. Because, of course, we still want you to be full and have enough food. And one of the benefits of my nutrition plan is you can eat as many veggies as you want. So it's a really great way to help keep yourself feeling full without those carbs. But give it a whirl. Let me know what you think. And if you are loving this, if you're loving this style of education and nutrition, I would love to talk with you more. You can get a hold of Brandis. She can give you my information. You can find me at Jess Ritchie 3 on Instagram or fitfoodiemama.com. Again, you can get that information from Brandis. I am so blessed to be able to share this with you guys today. Hopefully you've taken something away from this and you can start implementing it right away. So I hope you guys are having a great summer. We appreciate you so much. And I hope this was helpful. Have a great rest of your June.